Good afternoon, gearheads. Welcome to Speed City's coverage of the 2022 Formula One Crypto.com Miami Grand Prix.
You couldn't wait.
Take a breath.
You had to get right into it before the guy with the deep voice.
That's exactly right. We are so excited. We're here in Miami, and the rain just started a couple of minutes ago, but I think it's already stopped, and I think that is going to be the weathercast for the day, on and off rain. So we don't know, but this is John Massengale. That was Bob Varsha. I got Jonathan Green and Les Kaiser, and we're all in the booth. The 7x7 foot booth in Miami. Bob Varsha, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, and I'm really looking forward to this race. It's hard to overstate what the organizers have done here, building up a true world-class racetrack out of essentially nothing. It is absolutely immaculate. The city has embraced this whole thing. There are celebrities everywhere you look. That's the good news. The bad news is the drivers have been fairly critical of this racetrack surface, which they describe as an experiment. 70% Georgia granite, 30% South Florida limestone. And the drivers say it looks like it's going to be a one-line racetrack. If you get offline, you're likely to lose control of your car. So we have a lot of questions going in, which we always do at a first-time event. And let's see how it unfolds.
Jonathan Green, are you excited for this?
Yes, I am, and I think Miami is too. We've seen that throughout the weekend. There's no question they voted with their feet. They sold out within 90 minutes, and we've seen the explosion that is those people coming here, the packed grandstands, etc., are filled up now. We've already had a Porsche race and a W race. I agree with Bob. The biggest subject has been the surface. Carlos Sainz yesterday describing it as like rain offline. In other words, the marbles stroke granite stroke surface that does build up is not only rubber marbles, but also sort of debris from a new surface, and that's going to be a worry.
Les, does it remind you of COTA 10 years ago?
It really does. The excitement, the anticipation, the unknown, the big question marks for the teams. Pirelli was down there speaking to Mario Ismola on this, and he said, I asked him, how are things going? He goes, the tires that are out are performing very close to what was projected. They're very happy with what they're seeing. I've got some more info we'll share later on.
Yeah, we've got lots to talk about. We've got some great interviews. We've been gathering interviews all weekend long. And the one that I want to tease is that we got to sit with Michael Andretti very shortly. Yesterday, Bob Varsha and Jonathan Green sat with him for just a few minutes and talked about the Andretti Global F1 effort. And he had some things to say that I had not heard before, and some very interesting things. And we're going to play that in the post-race show. So you got to hang through to the post-race to hear that. But it's very interesting. But we've got interviews with the drivers. We've got interviews with a sit down with Otmar Szafnauer. And we're going to play that pretty quick in the early in the second segment, because he kind of sets up the whole weekend for us and talks about, like Jonathan mentioned, the track surface, how he was saying it's the tire debris more than the surface out there. And maybe it's some sort of the way that tire debris interacts with this specific surface.
I'll say one thing. I know the race hasn't begun, but Miami have got a lot right so far.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to focus on that surface being a big problem, because literally everything else is top-notch. And I'm very, very impressed with everything that we've seen outside of the surface. But everything else is fantastic, and I don't think the surface is going to be that big of a story.
Yeah, it's the organizers themselves have said, hey, if there's something we can improve, and in a chat with Chip Ganassi yesterday, he told me, look, it's a first-time event. There's always going to be something that you can improve. And the organizers have said if we need to fix the track surface, we'll do that. But we've got what we've got. We've got a full field here. I imagine Otmar Szafnauer was not pleased because his man Esteban Ocon cracked the chassis of his car in a huge practice crash. So he'll have a fresh chassis under him. And that's just one of the stories of practice and qualifying. Carlos Sainz had another biff, but responded well in qualifying. An all-Ferrari front row, followed by an all-Red Bull second row. It's going to be magic down there at Turn 1.
Well, we have a fantastic location for the broadcast booth, because out the front window we're looking right at the pit lane exit. And what is that, about turn 18?
Entry.
Excuse me, pit lane entry, excuse me. Pit lane entry at turn 18.
19.
19. I was close on both, right?
Yeah,
He's
definitely.
excited to be here,
Yeah.
Bob.
And I'm also looking out the other side of the booth, and we're looking straight at the Hard Rock Stadium entrance. It's really an amazing facility just looking at that structure.
Yeah.
So
impressive.
just the whole and guys, everything from the food, the facilities, the service. We had the internet connection break yesterday. It was fixed in 5 minutes. It is a fantastic organization, and I'm really impressed with all this.
It's interesting to see a lot of people from COTA, a lot of people from the Mexico Grand Prix. Bruce Knox was here. So everybody having a look at how it's done elsewhere, and that's good. That shows that there is competition. We have Vegas coming online. COTA is obviously the only permanent FIA Grade 1 circuit. And America, there's no question, has got now 3 Grand Prix, and everybody's checking each other out.
Something that reminds me of COTA in those very first years, everybody that you encounter involved with the race, whether it's somebody just checking credentials at the gate or people serving food in the media center or whatever it might happen to be, everybody says, have a great day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Enjoy
Everybody.
yourself. Thanks for coming. Welcome.
Yep.
Yep.
I really appreciate that.
Well, thanks to everybody that's tuned in. We're looking at some comments on social media. Somebody saw the photo of us in this room, and they said, is the AC going to suffer a DNF? Well, I hope not.
Let's please not.
But it looks like it's never been used before. It is brand new, so I have high confidence in the equipment here. And Ray says he's listening live from Darlington, South Carolina. Mr. Cook says surface plus weather, and with a grinning, gritty face. So we really don't know what to expect today. And it's rained probably, 4 or 5 times, but typically for like 3 to 5 minutes, and very light rain, and then it dries up in 5 minutes.
Yeah, little shower. That's the thing about Florida. It rains a lot, but it dries quickly.
Yeah, it's been very humid and hot, as you can imagine, as Miami always is.
So yesterday I took a walk around the facility, utilizing the upper deck of the Hard Rock Stadium to get a good view, and that really is a great perspective of everything. You can get up there into the general admission areas and get quite the view of the track.
Yeah, all those folks hanging over the railings, looking down on the media pen where the drivers come to be interviewed by the media, or watching the entry gate as all the stars of Formula One come in. And another thing I've noticed, and this is probably due to the famous Netflix Drive to Survive shows, people out there were anxious to get selfies with team principals.
Oh,
Can
yes.
you believe that?
That was crazy.
Right.
Well,
I got Wolf, I got Christian Horner, I got Gunther Steiner.
well, hey, guys, it sounds like we've got our man outside, Chris Medland. Chris, how's it going? What do you got out there?
I have got sunburn, guys. That's what I've got out here. It is hot, but it's great. It's it's like it stopped raining, or it keeps like spitting the odd drop, but the sun's out. It's warm. I'm in the pit lane right now, heading down to Mercedes. You mentioned there about people wanting selfies with team principals. I was talking to one of the ESPN beat reporters who covers the Buffalo Bills, and they were saying Josh Allen was here yesterday, and they've never seen him be able to wander around like that without getting. Normally, he goes to an event, he's the big star. He forget the people in the actual paddock are F1 fans. They're coming up and they want photos with drivers or team principals, not actually here come and see sort of the A-list stuff. It's kind of remarkable because in my world, I'm saying Michael Jordan's here. I'm going to see if I can doorstep some of these names. Probably going to fail massively, but LeBron James is here, Barack Obama is here. There's some A names, and to the fans and guests are here to see F1 stars. It's just it's a surreal moment for F1 to be this big here.
Well, Chris, we're losing your audio just a little bit, so you may have to lean towards one of the Wi-Fi connections over there. But yeah, the list of stars is incredible. What were you going to say, Les?
Yeah, I was going to say I can fill in. I heard Obama there. We saw Michelle Obama out there. I believe Barack Obama, President Barack Obama is here. LeBron James is seen floating around. There's quite a few folks. Matt Damon made it in. Michael Jordan apparently was standing right there by Chris.
Michael Douglas?
Michael Douglas was
presented the
out.
Pole Award.
Saw quite a few. It's been just, a who's who. And had the opportunity to speak to Mario Andretti yesterday, and he asked me what I thought, and I said, I think it's going great. And I said, and furthermore, there's been a lot of discussions. Now we've got Las Vegas coming on to the calendar next year. This is a different personality of a race. Yeah. This is Florida. It's Miami. It's glitz and glam.
Yeah.
You know, high fashion, etc. Austin, we've got the true American down home experience there. Texas, of course, and then we're going to have Vegas. I think Vegas is going to be a flashy party town.
Well, you know, I was thinking, speaking of celebrities walking around, we could hold an IndyCar race with a number of those drivers from the IndyCar series that are here. It's really amazing. I don't think I've seen this much high-profile, big Q factor interest in a Formula One race outside of Monaco.
Yeah, it is extremely. I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen so many celebrities packed in here. But I want to ask my producer: do we have some of our post-qualifying driver clips ready? And if we do, I want to go to some of these because you know, we had qualifying yesterday, and you know, we never saw any dramatic surface issues there.
No.
So that's why I want to play these because I don't.
Better ask Carlos Sainz and Esteban Ocon.
We had a couple. You're right, but it didn't stop the whole show or anything. So, but let's hear from Charles Leclair because he's on pole and we want to hear from him first. All right, producer said hang tight on that. He's going to get that one queued up for us. We've got Carlos Sainz, we got Max Verstappen as well. We got all these clips we're going to play you guys. So
he only sent him about 50 of them. How can he get them?
Yeah, that's very true. All right, well, let's hear from Charles Leclair. Okay, we're not quite there yet. We're not in our home studio, so we've got a couple of technical difficulties. But guys, let's talk about the qualifying yesterday. Bob, you mentioned a couple of incidents that could have been due to the surface, but probably we don't know what happened, actually.
Well, yeah, it was another crash for Carlos Sainz. So, you know, Miami is not exclusively the one track that he's crashed at. He's had a very difficult time with that car. And he was very eloquent in the post-qualifying press conference about his confidence level. He says, I need to be more confident in what the car is doing. And that's not something that, you know, you flip on and off like a light switch. It has to be built up over time. And I'll get there, but I'm just not there now. And this car gives me surprises from time to time. As for Esteban Ocon, I mean, he went into the calamity corner here at turn 17, I believe it was. And, I mean, he hit the wall at about 150 miles an hour, cracked the chassis, as I said, was able to get out of it without injury, thankfully. And there was some talk that maybe they needed some of the Tech Pro barriers down there because basically I don't think there's Tech Pro anywhere around this racetrack. It's all concrete walls, and they are not far away on a track where a whole bunch of the cars in the field have gone over 200 miles an hour in the speed trap, topped by, I believe it's, I think it's Carlos Sainz, who went like 208 miles an hour.
Yeah, I know that the Red Bulls were also right around that same speed.
Red Bulls, you're right.
208, 209. But you know what? I want to step back just a little bit of what you said about the barriers and the way the track looks. You know, when we first heard about Miami, especially from across the pond, we heard, oh, I don't want to hear another parking lot race. Yes, this is a parking lot, but it does not feel like it at all. I mean, I was wandering around here for the first day, and I went, this is a parking lot. I forgot. Essentially, it started that way, but it is not. It looks like a proper circuit, and when you look at it on the television, it looks the same way. It's fantastic, Jonathan.
Yeah, if you haven't watched qualifying and you're tuning in for the first time here on Sirius, definitely think Saudi Arabia, not Monaco.
Yeah.
Because there's long straights, as Bob just mentioned, over 200 miles an hour at times, coming into some very, very tight hairpins, but also some fast mid-speed corners. And as we said, that's where the Ferrari seemingly have the advantage. That's how they've locked out the front row. By the way, first time front row lockout from Ferrari since Mexico last year, and that was when Verstappen, if you remember, was actually faster, but didn't make it, got penalized.
Yeah. Yeah, and it does not feel like that street circuit, Jonathan. And, you know, you talk about that long straight. That straight is 4,000 feet, you know, 1.25 kilometers or something. So when they predicted 200 miles an hour, I was like, it's going to be faster than that, and we're approaching 210.
Yeah, and one thing to look out for, sorry to interrupt, Bob, look out for, I think, is overtaking in DRS rather than in the corners.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. And it's that Ferrari strength in the corners you mentioned that's going to help them keep their opposition behind them. They're calling this a hybrid racetrack in that it kind of blurs the line between a permanent circuit and a temporary one. For my purposes, this is a permanent circuit all that happens is they take down the grandstands and all the tents and awnings, and and the media center becomes the luxury boxes in the Hard Rock Stadium to watch the Dolphins play. Other than that, this is a permanent racetrack, so I don't know how that changes just because you take down the extraneous buildings. I'm reminded of Monza, which is technically a temporary setup to please the environmental folks over there, but those buildings have not come down in decades as far as I can tell. So anyway, welcome to the new era of Formula One and a hybrid racetrack.
All right, we're coming up. We've got that interview with Otmar Safnauer, but before that, CrowdStrike presents Driven in 60. Our digital world is more than just interconnected, it's interdependent, and because of that, security is a top concern for every organization. The Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team knows they're a potential target for a host of digital attacks, which is why they leverage the CrowdStrike Falcon platform to deploy end-to-end security solutions. CrowdStrike revolutionized cybersecurity by harnessing the speed and power of the cloud to identify and stop the most sophisticated cyber attacks. Our cloud-native Falcon platform protects and defends organizations against increasingly complex threats, so you can have the peace of mind to focus on your business momentum, not what's trying to stop it. That's protection that powers you. To learn more and to try CrowdStrike Falcon free today, visit crowdstrike.com/XM. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we are coming back. We're going to have lots more from you live from Miami.
Hi, this is Karun Chandok, and you're listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
All right, welcome back to Miami. We're about 45 minutes from the Miami Grand Prix, the second of 2 races in the United States this year. How great does that sound, gentlemen?
Oh, yeah, loving it, loving it. And, a lot of excitement around just that situation. There's been a lot of talk whether this would be completely sold out or not. I think that was answered in less than an hour after ticket sales went on. All good.
All right, they slipped them out there. 240,000 people over the 3 days.
Oh, they did. They released that. All right. All right. Well, we're going to check and see if we can go back out to Chris Medland. He is outside. I don't even know where you are exactly, Chris.
I am right in the middle of the grid right now, guys. I've managed to, it was Pirelli last time that we were praising for Wi-Fi. I've now got one of our photographers who has a little Wi-Fi hotspot who I'm following around the grid. So this is fun. The atmosphere's building. It's so hot out here. It's quite still because you've got, I know it's temporary, but you've got the grandstand on one side, you've got the pit building on the other, then the Hard Rock Stadium. And when the wind drops, the heat down here on the grid is intense. So it's only going to get higher as well as the cars are just starting to leave the pit lane behind me. So as they all come onto the grid and we get all the kit from all the teams, it's just going to get hotter and hotter. So yeah, I mean, the atmosphere is great already. It's building up. More and more fans are coming into the main grandstand, as you guys say. Sold out, but limited capacity this year, about 82,500 for today and yesterday. And they'll expand that with each passing year, but they didn't want to bite off more than they could chew for the first race. So 82,500 lucky fans in here with us.
Yeah, Chris, it is becoming electric out there. Jonathan, who's that message from?
We just got a world champion from Texas calling us, listening in. Kevin Schwantz, good to hear you're tuning in. And yes, it is the dulcet tones of the one and only Bob Varsha.
Thanks, champ.
We got cars on track, guys. We're about to see the Formula One car come right by our booth here in a moment. But Jonathan, I mean, this is right now the crowd is pouring in, and it is about to become electric.
Yeah, and I mean, this has been building up for the last few days. Look, I mean, we're watching the feed right now, and people are on their feet at the first sight of cars. There is a real sense of both festival and anticipation. It feels like a rock concert, you know? Everybody's looking for the stars. They're all here. And honestly, so far, the stars have all been the periphery, if you will. They are celebrities and so on. But now the real stars are coming out, and it's the cars. And that is really what's going to get everybody excited. And to see this track for the first time, we really are going into the unknown, and that is really going to be interesting.
What's that, Bob?
Well, I'm watching the monitors, and there's a young man out there who's being allowed to do the all-important job of sending one of the Williams cars out onto the racetrack. You don't want an unsafe release. That boy looked to be about 12 years old, maybe.
Yeah.
But he got the Williams safely into the pit lane, so all's well. But you're right about Miami has been partying since basically Tuesday. The DJ, South Beach has been rocking. Joe's Stone Crab, which you cannot get into. And all week long, the city has embraced this event so much. All the different flags in the grandstand. Yes, there's U.S. flags, but there's also the Union Jack for people like George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. Of course, plenty of Dutch flags for Max Verstappen, Mexican flags for Sergio Perez, and on and on and on. I mean, it's a fabulous moment. Right now, we're looking in the pit lane, and Mario Andretti is standing with Juan Pablo Montoya and Zach Brown from McLaren. It is a gathering of the clans of motor racing in the biggest possible way. It really is exciting. But now, after all the partying, it's time to get down to business.
Yes.
All right, well, it's time to get down to business, and let's hear some of that business that was taken yesterday from some of the drivers. Let's start with Charles Leclair.
I'm very happy from turn 4 onwards. From turn 1 to 3, it wasn't a great lap, but it's okay. I mean, overall, I'm very happy. Obviously, I'm starting on pole. There was probably a bit more in the car, but very happy with the lap overall.
Given the pace of the Red Bulls this weekend, how are you feeling about tomorrow's race?
I feel like they're going to be very strong. Max obviously need fewer laps than we did, so tomorrow with the race, he will have time to optimize his driving if he didn't learn the track enough yet. So he will be more competitive tomorrow, and it's going to be very tight, but it's great to have Carlos by my side, and hopefully we can push together and give a 1-2 to the team.
Okay, so good luck tomorrow.
Okay, guys. Charles Leclerc, the Ferrari has looked balanced and stable all year, and that continues today.
Absolutely. His 12th career pole position. All of his career victories have come from pole, which is a good sign for him. So, yeah, Charles Leclerc is looking really formidable here. Of course, he will have his arch rival Max Verstappen right behind him. And behind him, Valtteri Bottas, who once again has outqualified the team he used to race for, the Mercedes factory effort that kind of, put him gently to the curb last year. He is up there in 5th place. That's the highest Alfa Romeo has been in the 3 years of its team's existence.
Another thing to throw at our pole man, Charles Leclerc, is the fact that his teammate is wallowing, respectively, down in 5th place with 38 points. Carlos has not had the start to the season. This front row start is important to him.
Yeah.
So Verstappen, yes, is a problem for Ferrari, but for Charles Leclerc, he's got to watch out for Carlos Sainz making a good start. He needs a win.
All right, well, let's go and hear from Mr. Carlos Sainz. All right. Well, we'll try again for Carlos Sainz, but here we go. Here's Carlos.
In the right direction. My confidence wasn't the highest today after the crash of yesterday. I had to build it up, and even in that last quali lap, still didn't put the best of laps together. But it shows that I'm progressing, because even if it wasn't the best of laps, I was still on a fight for pole. So I think I'm getting there. It's just a matter of having a cleaner weekend, and I hope that will come in the future.
Front row for tomorrow's race. How are you feeling? What's possible?
I think the start will be tricky on the dirty side, but at the same time, if we get a clean start, everything can happen. I have no idea about the car in high fuel. Haven't tried it yet, so I have no idea what I will find myself with. But at the same time, it's I think it's a good opportunity, and we need to take it. And if the car is good, why not?
Point I want to bring up there, he says he's on the dirty side, but it's also the inside of the track. The pole is on the right-hand side as we look at it, looking from forward. So the pole man, that's Leclerc, should have the straight run on the race line. But if you want to make a block pass up the inside on the dirty line, and you can pull it off either Verstappen or Sainz, that could be something to look for.
That would be a very risky move on so many levels for Carlos Sainz if he tries to block past his teammate in turn 1. But let's not underestimate what Carlos Sainz has done. From a very heavy accident in second free practice on Friday, he come back in qualifying and put it right up there on the front row alongside his teammate. I thought that was a very brave effort by Carlos Sainz.
Sainz, he's done a great job, but right behind those two Ferraris are the two Red Bulls, and I've got Christian Horner with me on the grid right now. Christian, firstly, I mean, the atmosphere is building. You're getting a fist bump from Fernando Alonso. He's a wise old fox, isn't he? What do you make of this first Miami Grand Prix experience so far?
Yeah, as an event, it's an amazing event. It's great to see such a welcome, such an enthusiasm for Formula One. So I hope we can put on a great race.
And speaking of, I mean, what are your hopes? You've got a quick kind of straight line, but that's not your only strength. Do you think you can take it to Ferrari this afternoon?
I hope so. You know, it's going to be an interesting race. We've got a completely different concept of Ferrari in terms of how to attack this this circuit. So they're on the high downforce, we're on the low side. So I don't know which is right and which is wrong at the moment.
Any concerns? Anything curveballs? Do you think this race will throw at you?
Always concerns, but you know, let's see. It's a tough track. It's a difficult surface. Maybe some weather around as well. So lots going on.
Yeah. Well, good luck today. As Christian Horner, just as he heads to the front of the grid where Red Bull are used to being, but it's row 2 for them today, behind those 2 Ferrari guys you were just speaking to.
Well, hey, Chris, I want to ask you about Max Verstappen, because at the press conference yesterday, Max immediately went into the fact that they have not had nearly as much track time again, and he was, you know, basically coming into this on his back foot.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the way that Friday went for him was far from perfect, and he's getting very frustrated with the fact that those little kind of niggly issues are hitting Red Bull. When he's like, you know, we're a front-running team, we shouldn't be having these. We should be having smooth weekends, because when you get a smooth weekend, we're right up there, we're quick. But it doesn't take a lot to kind of swing the balance. We've seen it, haven't we, track to track sometimes, where Red Bull were dominant in Imola because Ferrari didn't quite get it together. But then Melbourne, Red Bull didn't get together on the Friday, and they were miles off compared to where Ferrari were at. So, yeah, the swings in performance are huge between those two teams. If one gets it right, one gets it wrong. And he's just frustrated that Red Bull have got it a little bit wrong on too many occasions on a Friday. So it was an impressive performance, actually, from Max, in the sense that he was, you know, provisional pole after the first run. He just said that the mistake he made on his final run was because he didn't know where the limit was yet. He was still exploring it, having not been able to do that in practice. Normally, that would be a harmless little run-wide incident in practice that everyone would forget happened, but it would tell the driver where the limit is. And he didn't have that experience.
Yeah, lack of practice has been a real theme of this weekend thus far, and we can't underestimate the importance of running with full fuel. That's 100 kilos of fuel, 220 extra pounds in the car. And several drivers in this field have absolutely no data or no feeling for the car with that much extra weight.
All right, gentlemen, we got to get a quick break in, and when we come back, we'll have more live from Miami.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
The Speed City F1 pre-race show on SiriusXM is brought to you by CrowdStrike. Stop today's most sophisticated cyber attacks at the office, the racetrack, and everywhere in between. Learn more at crowdstrike.com/XM. It's John Massaguel, Bob Varsha, Jonathan Green, Les Kaiser, and Chris Medland out on the grid. But I think, guys, that we are, about 30 minutes away, right? So from the race here at Miami. I'm just looking around at the clouds and the rain, right? You can't tell in Miami because it looks great right now, but it could rain any second, and that's part of the formula here in Miami. Oh, look, there's Mario and look at that, Les. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fuel championship.
Andretti.
And Emerson Fittipaldi.
2 rivals chatting away. Love it.
Yeah, 2 older gentlemen with younger generations still involved in motorsports at a very high level. And don't forget, we're going to show you or let you hear what Michael Andretti had to say about the progress of his proposed Formula One team as we go forward. And before we go any farther, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.
Mom, if you're listening, I love you.
Yes. Did everyone call their mother before we went on the air? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, my friend.
That's all right. She's watching. Hey, there you go. More entertainers out.
Yeah, the grid is completely full of huge stars. Although I'll have to admit, I don't know who this is because I'm not of that generation.
Oh, come on. Come on.
Who was it?
DJ
That
Khalid.
is DJ Khalid.
I saw you Googling it.
Oh, John, you got to get out more often.
I guess so.
Got to teach him to drink, too. I don't know.
Yes, I'm not very good at that, gentlemen.
Quick look down on the grid, and we saw the Ferrari, and there is a network of cooling tubes plugged into various parts of the car, trying to get that car ready to go. How many races do you go to where you don't have to warm up your car, you have to cool it down?
That's right. Well, they're already working I noticed Checo is
Yeah.
not only in his usual
plugged
suit,
in.
but he has what's like a quilted vest put on that appeared to be frozen. And so he's got some added cooling of his own for that as well. So there's a lot of things. They're really focusing on hydration. Here locally in the area, they're advertising about staying hydrated and everything here. It's really something else. The heat, the humidity is taxing.
Hey, guys, let's talk about the circuit itself, about the specs and the turns and the DRS zones and all the above. Bob, I see you put some notes in here. We got 3 DRS zones today. Let's talk about how that can play into today.
It's a long track, 3.6 miles around, 19 turns, most of them left-handers, so you're really going to work those right-side tires. Pirelli has suggested that a 2-stop strategy is best. Curiously, they say the very best is to start on the medium tire, take it about 20 laps, go to a set of the hard tires, go another 20 laps, and the rest of the way on yet another set of hard tires. Now, we don't have a lot of data based on previous activity this weekend, but there's about 3/4 of a second difference between the hard and the medium tire, not to mention the soft, quickest tire in the Pirelli lineup. So I'm not sure why you'd want to start on the hard tire because you're going to lose ground until you get to your pit stop. I would start on the medium. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if the whole field does, and then go to the hard, push it as long as you can, and maybe even think about going to the set of the reds if you only have about 12 to 15 laps to go the rest of the way. But hey, what do I know?
Les Kaiser, you talked to the head of Pirelli.
Absolutely. He gave us some insight, as mentioned briefly earlier. Absolutely. This is a new track. There's near zero, but they are coming very near their predictions. They're confident in the tire selection, the compound selections that they've got. Things are running well. One of the things to watch is much of this asphalt was laid down a month or so ago and has already kind of seeped or had its chemicals raised out of it, and it's clear, and they're getting good, decent traction, or they're in the area that they expected. The areas that are surprising them is this week. There were some unexpected repairs that they did. Those areas still have quite a bit of the compound mixed in and the chemicals in them. Those have not seeped and vaporized and got out of there. And what they discovered over the past day or two is when those got wet, things really got slick on that spot. So got to beware. You're going to see some quick whiplash reactions if we get any moisture during the race as they cross those patches.
Hey, guys, a couple comments off of social media. Alex says, hello from Rochester, my New York race fan. He says, any points for Haas today? And I think there's probably a pretty good shot at points for Haas. And looking good for Haas, Bob, is Mick Schumacher.
He is. He made it into Q2, which I'm not sure if that's a first for him or not, but obviously he's driving very well here. Kevin Magnussen, by contrast, has struggled a little bit, although he practiced very, very well. He had problems in qualifying, was eliminated in Q1, but the Haas cars have potential. I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the points by the end of the day. There's only 3 teams, I believe, that didn't have at least one car in the top 10 shootout. So it's a real mixed bag up front.
All right, well, we're going to go to a clip that Chris Medland just got us because he caught up with Formula One's Ross Brawn, who is the executive of motorsport. I forgot the exact title.
Head of motorsport, yeah.
Basically head of motorsport. But let's hear from Ross Brawn just a couple of minutes ago.
So, Ross, thanks for joining us here on SiriusXM and Speed City Broadcasting. We're sat in a very impressive view you've got from your office here overlooking the Miami International Autodrome and the start-finish straight. But how impressed have you been with the event as a whole and what Miami's done here?
I think obviously we were very involved with the design of the track and the development of the track and so on, but not so involved in everything else that's been done. It's just absolutely incredible, fabulous. And I think that through this whole process, the promoters, the Dolphins, have always said that the track is paramount. We have to have a great track, and then they'll build everything around it, and that's exactly what they've done. And it's just sensational.
Do you think it's set the standard, so to speak, in terms of an F1 event? Because, like you say, it looks like we'll see how the race pans out, but it looks like we've got an exciting racetrack, and the whole campus around it is huge. Yeah, no, I mean, we've always had this ambition to emulate a Super Bowl, especially in America, and I think we're getting close now. And, of course, our event's over several days, so...
but it is fabulous. And clearly it's not a approach that will work in every country or every track or every environment, but it's a great template for this sort of event. And just see people enjoying themselves so much. They've got the race to watch, they've got everything else going on, but all the rest of the activities are just sensational. And
you've been very complimentary about what the race organisers have done, but how much credit should we give to Formula One as well? Because maybe in the past it's been a bit, in previous eras, a bit plug and play when the sport expects people to gravitate towards it. And I'd say under the latest ownership, it looks like it's working hard to make sure it reaches out to the fan base in each region that it goes to.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think, it wasn't just exploiting the commercial model. I mean, if you take the example of the cars we're racing now are cars that we've had a very strong input into the design of, because we wanted to have racing cars. The clue is in the name. It's a racing car. And the old cars couldn't race each other because the aerodynamics were so extreme. It made it impossible to have a good race. So these cars we've been very involved in. We're involved in every aspect. We're involved in helping the track design. We're involved in helping the car design. We're involved in how the race format. We've introduced the sprint format, which is a new initiative. So we're much more involved in the whole event and making sure the event appeals to the fans and appeals to all the promoters and all our partners.
Go ahead, Bob.
Interesting to hear Ross Brawn say that. There was some news on the sprint race front that after the success of the event at Imola, they wanted to raise the number of sprint races in a season from 3 to 6. And apparently the teams all agreed to it, but the FIA blocked a vote on the issue, which I find really curious. I'm not sure why. I'm sure there's some political leverage being used somewhere along the line, but I thought that was really strange given the fact that everybody enjoyed the sprint race at Imola, and yet the FIA says, well, let's just stay at 3 for now.
And you remember how quickly they reacted to that right after that sprint. I think it was that afternoon they were like, this went so good. You could tell, in other words, they want to do this badly. They were just waiting for a great successful sprint race like they got at Imola to push this. That's what it felt like.
Yep.
Jonathan, what do you think about the sprint race in Imola and the whole situation of all this?
I find it interesting in terms of points because Verstappen clearly used the sprint races last year to help win the championship. He was very successful in the sprint races, and when you add them all up, it adds to 25 points. So, i.e., if you're successful, it can bring a lot more points to the table. And I think this is going to be another nip and tuck championship and a wide open championship. I really do think we're going to have several different winners. I know Ferrari have started very well and they've got an excellent lead, but I think the chase is on. Mercedes will improve. AlphaTauri, I think, might win a race or two, and there's no question McLaren might even win today.
Yeah, very true.
I was watching a conversation online that was really interesting. It was, what if you're a team towards the back of the grid and you're never going to complete a Grand Prix, but instead you start focusing on racing the sprint race for your points? What that can do to the ranking of the back of the grid teams can actually get you up into a higher cash budget.
Yeah. Well, that's a story yet to be resolved. The other thing I thought was interesting from Ross Brawn is the template for this event is the Super Bowl, of which I think they've had 6 here in what's now known as Hard Rock Stadium. So, I mean, that's a very high bar, and I'd have to say, based on what we've seen this weekend, they have met it. So now what's your next goal?
Yeah, well, it's certainly an impressive-looking facility. I can believe they've had 6 Super Bowls here. But, hey, speaking of Max Verstappen, Jonathan, I want to play this clip because it kind of backs up what we were talking about earlier. Let's hear from Max Verstappen.
Well, I think it's more that if we would have a clean weekend, we would have been on pole, because you cannot afford on a new track like this to have a weekend like we've had, to only do 4 or 5 laps on a Friday. I mean, we can, of course, sweet talk her, but it's extremely painful. Yeah, I think overall, to be third in qualifying is still a good result.
With the lack of running, how are you feeling about tomorrow in a very long race with these tyres?
Yeah, I mean, of course, this morning I did a bit of a long run, and it's going to be tough. I mean, the tyres are really getting hot, and I hope, of course, that's an hour advantage, but yeah, let's see.
Yeah, and that's what he's been complaining about. He wants a more reliable car.
Also picked up on the fact that he mentioned how hot the tires are getting. I'm interested to see just how the hard tires react. We've seen people coming out of the pit stops. You mentioned 2-stop is the expected, and it could be that those hard tires actually come up to temperature quicker than they have before and don't create the problems straight out, especially the fronts, as they have done in previous races so far this season.
I don't think no trouble getting temperature in the tires today. Mr. Bob Varsha, why don't you run down the starting grid for us?
All right, let's have at it. As we know, Charles Leclair starts from pole for Scuderia Ferrari, his 12th career pole. All of his previous 4 victories have come from pole position. Next to him, Carlos Sainz. As I mentioned, a brilliant qualifying effort after that Friday crash. Ferrari's first 1-2 in years. On the second row, all Red Bull Racing. Max Verstappen inside, who missed getting to the front row by 5/1,000ths of a second. At his elbow, Sergio Perez, who has got a string going. He's been in the top 4 in qualifying for every race. On row 3, Valtteri Bottas, Alfa Romeo's best start in its 3-year history, and Valtteri ahead of both of the factory Mercedes guys. Next to him, one of those factory Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton, who had a white-knuckle ride to get into Q3 and then put the car up on row 3. But it is still a handful for the 7-time world champion. On row 4, Pierre Gasly for Scuderia AlphaTauri. That's the best for the team this year in P7. P8, Lando Norris for McLaren F1. That's his 3rd Q3 appearance in the 5 races this year. Under row 5, Yuki Tsunoda in the 2nd Scuderia AlphaTauri, his first Q3 appearance of the year. Next to him, another guy who got to Q3 for the first time, Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. Under row 6, Fernando Alonso, who practiced as high as 4th at one time or another through Friday and Saturday, but at qualifying came around, he slipped outside the top 10. He'll start 11th. Next to him, George Russell, who said he was surprised by the speed of his Mercedes. He was actually the fastest car in free practice 2 on Friday, but he was eliminated in Q2 for this race. On to row 7, Sebastian Vettel, trailing his teammate. And Sebastian showed up for scrutineering, where both your personal jewelry and your underwear, which has to be flame resistant, was going to be checked. So Sebastian showed up in his driving suit with his tighty whities on the outside of the driving suit, which I thought was clever. Next to him, Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren, trailing his teammate Lando Norris for the 9th race in a row in qualifying. On row 8, Mick Schumacher with the Haas F1 team, who outqualified his teammate Kevin Magnussen and made it into Q2. Next to him, his teammate Kevin Magnussen, and 2 of the last 3 races he's gone out in Q1. On row 9, first Q1 elimination for the amazing young Chinese rookie Zhou Guanyu for Alfa Romeo. Next to him, Alex Albon, who was very quick on Friday and has outqualified his Williams teammate Nicholas Latifi 5-0 through 5 races thus far. Latifi will start in the 19 spot inside row 10. Outside will be Esteban Ocon for the Alpine F1 team, who was unable to qualify at all as his team had to build up an entirely new tub for him to race today.
Well, gentlemen, we are almost to the 10-minute mark before the race, so let's get in our last break real quick, and we'll be back right after this.
Hello, I'm Jenny Gow from BBC F1. You are listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
Speaking of Jenny Gow and the BBC team, this weekend, how far are we away from them, Jonathan?
4 inches.
They're in
the thickness of the wall.
They're in the next closet over, 4 inches away from us. So you are going to be able to hear.
Nice to see them, though.
Yes, it was. You can be able to hear the entire race, of course, from the BBC team in the booth next door to us. Who's over there, Jonathan? Jolene Palmer?
Yeah, Jolene Palmer and, of course, Jack Nicholls.
That's right. All right, Les, you got our driver interviews organized. We want to hear from Lando. Is that right?
Absolutely. Definitely got to check out Lando. Give some good insight, as well as has a particular poignant comment about the asphalt and tires.
All right, let's hear from Lando.
I'm happy, to be honest. It's very tricky. It's very tough to put the laps together. Just easy to make mistakes, whatever. But maybe not the happiest. I made a mistake on my final lap. You know, I didn't go as quick as what I did in Q2, and I just made one small mistake. It just cost me so much. So, yeah, I hurt a little bit because could have maybe been 2 positions ahead. You know, mistake maybe cost me a couple tenths, and that would have been two positions. So, a bit annoyed about that, but nevertheless, I think I'm so happy. Like, it was a tough day. I think we made good progress all weekend from where we were. You know, we didn't think we'd be even in Q3, so I'm happy, and a good chance for us to score some points tomorrow.
I was going to say, how are you feeling about tomorrow? If you've made improvements through today, does that give you more optimism for tomorrow?
It's tough. I don't think we're out of position, let's say. You know, I felt like I was driving well today and putting the laps in, even though I made the mistake at the end. So just because we're behind doesn't necessarily mean we have a much better car than them because of where I was in Q2. So we'll see. It's a bit of unexplored territory with the race, you know, doing so many laps on a single set of tires. The track, you know, how it's going to change throughout the race with the stones and the crap that's on it. But we're in a good position, so we can score some good points from that.
Always interesting, Lando Norris, and you could say he's looking for a slam dunk because he is wearing a basketball.
Better explain that.
He has got a basketball on his head.
His
helmet,
brilliant.
his bell helmet is in the design of an NBA basketball. It looks fantastic.
Because it's round, it looks perfect.
Did it? Got a bit of news story for you. I'm going to be on a special watch at the start of this race, and it's going to be called the Aston Martin Ocon watch because Aston Martin have just announced they've got some fuel issues, and they will both, that's Lance Stroll starting 10th and Sebastian Vettel starting 13th, start from the pit lane, and Ocon, of course, starts at the back, and he was quicker than that from qualifying and unfortunately, obviously, had that crash, and practice, I mean. So we will watch those guys try to come through, but that is bad news for Aston Martin.
Yeah, that is not what they wanted to hear, gentlemen.
No.
Hey, guys, I want to take a quick moment to do a quick announcement. We're excited to announce that we did a 3-year extension with SiriusXM and Formula One, and we'll be continuing to do this coverage for you. And so did SiriusXM, obviously, and Formula One for another through the 2024 season. So very exciting news.
So y'all are stuck with us.
That's right.
Yeah, we have to keep covering Formula One.
All right.
3 races in America next year.
Yeah.
That's right, boys. All right, Bob, what are you looking at right there? It's getting exciting down there.
Boy, it is. They're starting to clear the grid. Beautiful helicopter shots on the feed. Gosh, this is such an amazing facility. Multi-purpose. They hold a huge international tennis tournament here. Now they've got Formula One, and they may have other races in the future. I mean, the track will always be there. It's just a matter of how much you want to dress it up. But certainly for the next decade, we'll have Formula One. And, of course, the NFL season takes place within the confines of Hard Rock Stadium. But it's been absolutely great fun. It's going to be a fascinating race. It may not be pretty, and it may not be clean, but it's going to be great.
Jonathan, you've got 400 pages of notes that you're flipping back and forth through. There's got to be something else that you have to get in these last 5 minutes.
Mario Andretti, the first winner of a street race in America.
Okay.
Back at Long Beach, back in 1977. McLaren have a good record here, and could it be followed on by Lando Norris? But McLaren have won more American street races than anybody else, and in fact, the one and only Bruce McLaren won down the road at Sebring. First ever, 1959.
Ah, that's right. And that's the last time that there's been a Formula One race in Florida was in 1959. Am I right?
That's correct.
That is correct.
Yep, the next year, Alex Ullman, who had promoted the Sebring 12 Hours as well as the U.S. Grand Prix at Sebring, got disgruntled for some reason and took the race to Riverside International Raceway, which sadly no longer exists, out in Riverside, California.
Well, I know with you two guys here, it's like having a safety net. I can just throw a stat out there, and you guys can both confirm it for me. All right, gentlemen, we're getting down to it. We got about 3.5 minutes left. Let's go ahead and start talking about who we think might win. And I hate those that when commentaries and pundits do it, I want to know who you want to win too. Why don't we start with you, Mr. Kaiser?
Oh, man, odds are I'm going to go with Max. Just to throw a curveball out there, and I want to see
That's
Lando
not too big
win.
of a curveball, though.
Well, yeah, but he's got to get past a few people in front of him.
True.
That definitely can put their elbows out. But I want to see Lando. I would want to see Lando win.
Okay, Jonathan Green.
I'm with Les. I want to see Lando Norris win and continue that McLaren vein. But I really do. My heart says that what will happen is Carlos Sainz will fight like he's never fought before, will get ahead by hook or by crook of Charles Leclair, and he will take his first win of the season. And I think Leclerc will be forced into a backup role because they'll be trying to defend from Red Bull.
You know what? I like what you said about Carlos Sainz because he came in almost a downward spiral. I mean, almost a free fall. And he had to do what he did to almost save his season up to this point. I mean, he had all the pressure in the world, and he was right there on the front row after all that. So I agree that is a pretty good, reasonable call there.
First ever street race at Long Beach, 1976, won by Clay Regazzoni in a Ferrari.
Ah, Clay Regazzoni. Okay, I have no idea who that is, but
what? He was one of my first autographs.
Was he really? That? Yes, I'm sorry, I don't know who Clay Regazzoni is. Bob.
They had a savage accident at Long Beach.
He did
crippled
actually,
himself.
4 years later.
Continued to race karts and things. He and Mario Andretti are very close friends. Yeah, Clay was one of a kind.
Well, Bob, we're almost down to it. We haven't gotten your prediction yet either.
Well, I'd like to see Carlos Sainz win, but the Spaniard is going to have to show me. I mean, look, Formula One is not a race you're going to win being cautious. And I think he's still cautious because of confidence lacking after his recent crashing. So I'd like to see Sainz win, but I don't think he will. I think Max Verstappen wins with Charles Leclerc second and Sergio Perez third.
Well, I'm going to take Charles Leclerc for the win and Max Verstappen. And on pole, on podium with them, I'm going to say Lewis Hamilton. How about that?
But that's on porpoise.
that is on
nice.
porpoise.
Lewis has still been dealing with porpoising this weekend, and in a few spots of the track, very diligently, you'll see his helmet bouncing back and forth.
Or as a British commentator trying to explain the aerodynamic phenomenon, porpoising.
Porpoising. He was getting every letter of that.
What does he think Flipper was, a porpoise?
All right, gentlemen, we're about to go out to the BBC team for the entire race. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, but don't forget, we have our post-race show right after the race for a full hour. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you after the race.
Ciao, y'all.